boldip.com.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Bold Inventor Show. I'm your host, JD Houvener, owner, founder, and patent attorney here at Bold Patents Law Firm. And we are live. We're doing it again. If you catch us after the fact, you're watching this and you want to watch us live, we are on every week, every Wednesday at noon Pacific. So come check us out on your lunch break. We're talking about intellectual property, specifically patents, trademarks, copyrights, and maybe even a trade secret or two. I normally have my co-host with me, Matt Colseth. He's out with his kids. He's taken them as a chaperone on a field trip. So I'm excited for him to take a week off. We do welcome our live viewers. Know that we have some limitations as attorneys. We're not going to be able to share any legal advice for anyone specifically. So if you're looking for that, I'll be providing a link later in the show for you to schedule a free discovery call. What I do want to do is provide a brief disclaimer. Just so you can have that legal notice, of course, being an attorney, making sure you know that by attending the conference today, this live seminar, there's no attorney-client privilege here. And please do not share any confidential information about your inventions. This is not the forum to do so. So I've got that out of the way. I've got a wonderful guest. You probably saw from the title, Natalie Turner from 6 Eyes. She's going to be with us. I'll have her on. She's waiting patiently backstage. I'm going to get to some of the questions that you've sent in over the week first, and then we'll bring Natalie on and have hopefully a nice discussion here. And I do encourage live participation throughout our Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube groups. All right, let's get to some of these questions that came in over the week from our Reddit and Quora forums. I think I've got 3 that I highlighted. This first one I thought was quite good. It comes up often with inventors and those involved within universities. So here's the question, I'll read it. Why do universities or colleges take ownership of students' intellectual property and patent rights? Okay, that's wonderful. I think it's important to understand the relationship. As you, the inventor, if you are a student, and maybe a graduate student or research, right, postdoctorate research student, understand what your role is there, and if you've signed any employment agreement, separate from your academic status or as a student enrolled in the university. But this question is about students. So let's say for this case that there's no employment agreement at play here. You're merely just a student and you've invented, maybe in the furtherance of a project or a presentation you're doing, a dissertation, and the college university wants to claim ownership. Well, it does depend on whether you've used, you're almost in the same sense as an employee. You've used their equipment, their tools and resources, maybe their lab, or you've used their space, their computing, and certainly the knowledge of the professors that you're learning from. And so that is sort of inherent in terms of their ownership, their ability to say, hey, well, this was created on our campus, following our instructor's guidance. And so they may be able to claim ownership of that invention. Ownership of inventions, in the employee-employer stance is determined based on 3 major criteria of, were they using the employer's equipment? Were they on the clock? And was it related to the job's scope and description? And so the same kind of questions would apply here, as if maybe the student invented this on their own time, outside of school hours, not using the equipment, the tools from the school, and it was not part of the curriculum. Well, then ownership of that invention might lean toward the individual, the student owning it independent from the college or university. So this is really good. But I will say, aside from all of that, which I think will come down to very specific circumstances to make a determination on ownership, university or colleges, their main interest is research. and they usually don't want to get involved in the commercial realm and trying to make profits. And so their interest usually is just in seeking a license from the inventor to be able to continue researching and developing, right? That's where they get a lot of their funding from. That's where they bring in professors and researchers to bring in more knowledge and skill, art, to basically improve the information and basically increase their rankings, if you will, or their popularity, whatever they're going for in the university. And so they'll usually allow the inventor to go out and fully commercialize, exploit the invention. So hopefully that answers your question. There's a good one. Okay, next one here. bit longer question. All right, I've been developing and testing a new design for an aquarium hobby item. It will be cheap to make, but also only sell for about $50 to $60 per item. I'm hoping it will have a very high volume of sales as it's a common product that everyone uses, but there's a dire need. I've researched online and haven't found anything similar. I've developed CAD designs, 3D printed, and tested, and just currently want opinions on if a patent will be worth it. The concern is it can be easily replicated by overseas manufacturing, and I cannot afford the cost of patenting overseas internationally. I'm in the US and don't mind spending $20K if I know it will provide me some security, not including enforcement of the patent. Well, whoever's asking this question is very thoughtful, and you should be thinking about, can I afford enforcement? How am I going to enforce this patent, even if I am able to achieve that goal of securing a patent? That's a great one. So you should have knowledge of that, what it costs to get the patent, and then what it might cost to enforce it, and knowing whether your scope is within just the US or outside of it. I will say here that even if you think this is going to be susceptible to infringement by overseas manufacturers, what you can say is there's more enforcement here in the US than you might think. There's, of course, the federal enforcement mechanism of going through the federal courts. Okay, that's if you want to seek damages against a defendant. There's a second tribunal called the Patent Trial and Appeal Board. And a third one, which I think is most important here, is the International Trade Commission, ITC, at Customs, can stop the importation of products that are infringing at the border. So even if you don't have a patent, let's say in Korea or Japan or China, and you can't prevent, right, the export within that country, well, at least you might be able to prevent the importing of that product if you only have a US patent at ITC and Customs. Now, that will not provide you a mechanism to get damages, but it will provide, if you're successful, an injunction, an inability for them to import that product. So there's ways to enforce it affordably, and certainly if the size of the market is big enough for this aquarium type market, the U.S. might be big enough for you, right? And you have enough, financial outlay, enough potential market opportunity for you to go for it. So I encourage you to continue forward. Feel free to get hold of us and schedule a discovery call if you're interested in considering us to be your attorneys. Okay, last question. Let's see. Okay, this one is about employer-employee. Let's get to this here. All right, recently I have a patent filed on my behalf by an ex-company, and I will remain as the inventor. At the moment, the patent is still pending. Will it be okay to add the patent name and application number on my LinkedIn profile under the patent filed option? Of course, excluding any other details of the patent. I'm not sure if that will be revealing too much before it's made public or against the rules. There's also been no information on the documents that restricts me. Okay, and the question goes on for a bit longer, but this is interesting. So someone who's left their employer and was named as an inventor on a filed and now pending application, how much can you share publicly, whatever. So kind of two things at issue here. One, I get back to the employment agreement that you had with that employer usually will cover trade secret, right? Knowledge you have that is not public, that is valuable to the company and not readily ascertainable by the public. You may not be able to share any details about non-public information, including pending applications that are not yet published. So even something like the patent application number is probably too risky. It's not worth it. I don't think it's really worth it for you to take that risk that you're going to share the application number, even if it's not publicly viewable. There's no real value for you there. You can just say, I'm an inventor on a patent. And if you don't have the number, wait for it to get published. Typically, applications, once a non-provisional utility patent is filed, will get published within about 18 months from the priority date. So a provisional is filed on January 1st, 2025. In 2026, in June, right, 18 months, then it will be published. That's around approximate when it will be published. When it's published, of course, then you can share and have that part of your little LinkedIn profile or wherever you want to share it. So that's my advice, recommendation. Make sure you're not going to run afoul of any employment agreement and trade secret misappropriation by doing that. And Yeah. Yeah. There certainly could also be the other alternative is it may not publish because the employer files a specific petition to have a non-publication request. It's possible if they only want to pursue patent protection here in the US and they're filing that petition to keep it very secret until it gets issued. That could also be true. So you want to really be careful that you're truly only sharing a public link from the published application. All right. Well, enough of that. I'm going to bring on our guest here, Natalie Turner. Welcome to the Bold Inventor Show.
Thank you very much, JD. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being with me and sharing your time. This is awesome. I'm excited to talk about innovation DNA. This is in the lifeblood of a lot of our clients and hopefully our listeners and viewers too. Let's kick things off. Let's say, set the stage. Let's start with the backstory. So what inspired you to create the 6 I's of innovation? What was the problem you're trying to solve?
Wow. Okay. Well, there is a lot that goes into the backstory, but in a nutshell, I had a background in corporate innovation. So I was working as an innovation director in a research firm. And we used to run these very engaging creativity workshops, often with customers or consumers, with big brands, and we would generate loads and loads of great ideas. And what I found was that when those ideas went back into the organization, a lot of them would get lost. A lot of them would, if they went to market, they would be diluted a lot of the time from their novelty. And so this really got me thinking about what is it that makes innovation happen? And if we think of innovation in its more broadest sense, creating value, new value out of new ideas that are new to you, then, we need to be thinking about how ideas travel. And not just the idea that we're creating, but what journey does it go on? And so this was really the inspiration for it, to think about it as a model, as a system, as an integrated system that was very people-centered. It's people that are creating the new things in the world, to implement those things. So I wanted to create something that would address quite a lot of complexity, this big word innovation, and distill it into more of a simplified model to help people understand the journey that ideas take, and also the different types of skills, mindsets, and approaches that we bring as individuals into that journey. So that was really, the main inspiration. And it's appropriate really for entrepreneurs, corporates, anyone really that's trying to bring new things into the world.
Goodness. So this sounds like kind of a framework and organization of innovation. This is very interesting, right? So, it sounds like a lot, systems, organizing, but you've simplified it. Maybe you give us an example of one aspect of innovation that you've clarified, simplified, maybe, or have found success helping clients understand.
I think a lot of the time, people get scared by this word innovation. And I think if we can break it down into discrete parts and say, okay, if innovation is the creation of something valuable out of ideas that are new to you, then what are the stages that, that idea might go through? And so within the model called the 6 I's, I have these 6. I don't know if you want to show up the picture. It might be quite good for people to be able to visually see it. But we've got these 6 I's: identify, ignite, investigate, invest, implement, and improve. And right in the center of the model, we have purpose, which is, why am I trying to innovate in the first place? What is the value that I am trying to create? So I think one thing that this really helps to give teams and people working, with other people, whether even if, you're a sole entrepreneur and you're working in partnership with other people, you're always going to be collaborating to some degree or another. Right. It gives everybody a common language as to where your ideas might be. And I even have a pre-stage, which is identify. And a lot of the time, I think when we are inventing and creating things, we can jump this stage completely. It's like we go into solutioning very, very fast. Whereas we need to sort of step back and have that mindset of curiosity, which I pair with identify and say, okay, what is the problem that I'm trying to solve? And who's going to benefit from the solution that I may create? And really to sort of get and unpack that. So I think that in a practical way, what it helps to do is to give this common language, a common framework for the journey of ideas. And it's not just like we go identify, ignite, investigate, invest, implement, improve. I think anybody that's created anything knows that it's iterative, it's dynamic, it's agile. We're jumping around all the time, particularly in those first sort of 3 I's, if I talk about it in a linear way: identify, ignite, and investigate. We're going backwards and forwards a lot of the time.
Okay.
You know, we test something, then we go back, test the idea, check the opportunity, etc. So the language is really important in giving people a system to think how their ideas are traveling.
Right. Yeah, it's almost, I thought when I first read this, I was thinking identify, the invention. But as I read this, actually, it seems like it's identifying a problem, identifying a gap.
Yeah.
Well, right. And so once you are able to define sort of the box, maybe then you can start working toward putting a solution in the box.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you need to know what the landscape is. How are people changing? How are needs changing? What trends are affecting your industry or the area that you're working in? And then within that, and even in a sense, you need to evaluate your opportunities, and you need to evaluate which space is most ripe for change right now, and therefore what could be a solution for that particular area. Right.
Yeah. As you were explaining this, my mind went to when we work with clients and inventors, they'll have prototyped the item. This is it. This is what I've invented. And I feel like a lot of the value us as patent attorneys provide is helping them think about it as a bit broader and think, well, how else did this apply? What else? What did you really invent? What are the metes and bounds and scope of what you've really invented here? And maybe it could also solve these other problems. And maybe we should write the patent application in a broader way. And it kind of made me think how you're going through the first 3 I's, having to kind of go back, push back, can kind of challenge what you've invented, and push that scope a bit more. Maybe you could give me an example of, some of the hurdles you faced, in getting this brought about. This has been around for several years, whether it be publishing. I believe you've got a book on this, right? And maybe working with clients. What has been kind of the hurdles you faced as an entrepreneur, business owner, bringing this out, just getting the word out about it?
Yeah, many, many along the way. Well, actually, at the very genesis, really, of the idea, it was quite interesting from an intellectual property perspective. I had a really good mentor in London, and it was in the downturn of the financial crisis back in 2008 eight, 9. And he said to me back then, he said, Natalie, create your own intellectual property. You know enough, you've worked enough, you've done enough in the field of innovation, you've worked with enough organizations. Start to codify and create your own intellectual property, because that is really where the value will lie. Otherwise, you're always going to be selling yourself, particularly if you're in professional services. It's always you and your time. You don't have something outside of you which can expand and scale and grow beyond you. And I thought that was fantastic advice, and I took it. But little did I know what would be involved in creating intellectual property. It sounds, but it doesn't sound easy. But it's that sense that, oh yes, well, I'll just go and research and create something. But then you realize, well, it's really complicated, and there's a lot involved to design, and to bring to market something that is new, that is even talking about innovation and how to innovate. So I think that was the first big challenge, was seeing that there was an opportunity both for the market and also for myself as a business owner, and really sort of plunging in and going for it. And I think, a lot of founders and inventors have that sort of aspect, maybe a little bit more of a risk-taking spirit to jump in and have a go and sort of work things out as they go along. Yeah. But I think as it evolved, as it started to develop, so first of all, there was the model, but then I created and again, it was a client need that came. It said, wouldn't it be great if we had some sort of way to measure innovation contribution, how different people contribute to innovating? And so that started the whole development of a profiling system to measure people's innovation strengths. And literally, I started with paper and pen, and a questionnaire that I had developed through research to say, okay, I think these are really fundamental soft skills that we need across the journey of innovation, and started to just use it. And I didn't even collect the data to start with. So I lost so much data because I didn't even do that. It was only when I started to think, right, if I'm really going to build a system, then we need an IT solution. We need to create something that can capture data, and then we need to, get a lot of data and then test it and develop a whole statistical model behind it. So they were some of the the early stage challenges that I faced in terms of getting it off the ground, even as a comprehensive system. And this was even pre-writing my book, Yes, You Can Innovate, in 2018.
Right. Okay. So you're sort of validating, right? You're coming up with these scoring and you're testing, right? And you're, okay, is this valuable to my client? And right, and kind of, how can I maybe help other clients? How can I standardize this? And so maybe let's share a bit more about the scoring. Has that changed? Maybe how is it currently? How do you score people? How do they self-assess?
Yeah, so it has changed because, again, and that's been an iteration. The questions haven't changed. So we have 36 questions, and you answer an online questionnaire, and you're asked 2 questions. The first one is, how good do you think you are at this particular skill? And the second one is, how important is this skill to you right now in your work? So one is more of a confidence measure, and the other one is more of an importance measure. The first score is we normed that data, so it's statistically normed, and that's been improved over time. We've done that a couple of times to refine the norms to make it more robust as an instrument. And so that means that you're not just measuring yourself, you're measuring yourself in comparison to other people who also consider themselves to be high or low on particular skill sets. And what it does is it then gives you a gap analysis between what you consider your strengths to be, and it's your self-assessment. It's not like it's testing your sort of psychology. It's more about how good do you think you are at these particular skills, and then what is the gap that you have. So you can start to think about, okay, how do I bridge the gap? Because nobody can be good at everything, and nor should they be. I feel I'm very much a strengths orientated. I come from that, but not at the expense of what an idea needs, because it's no point us saying, well, I'm a great igniter, and it doesn't matter if nobody, if I'm not investigating. If you're not such a good investigator, of course, your invention must have investigation. Otherwise, it's going to fall flat and it's not going to be worth investing in. So it really helps you to identify, what your strengths are, how you can play to them, but also where you might need to collaborate. Yeah. So the whole system has been built to create reports, and then you can download those reports and use them to help your own sort of leadership and innovation development, if you like, from a skills perspective.
That's cool. That's cool. So as an entrepreneur, there's no reason to lie on the test. There's no reason to cheat.
No.
You're going to want to be truthful and find out, like you said, yes, your strengths, but the opportunity, I think, is to find out where you might need that mentorship, where you're perhaps weak currently, and where you might need to join up with someone or seek counsel. It's wonderful. How does that
And
work?
everyone has a contribution. I think that's the other thing that's been quite different with this. With a lot of type of models out there, it can be, well, you're the creative person, and you're the person who just gets things done, as if the person that gets things done isn't creative. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I wanted to democratize this word innovation and say innovation is far more than being creative. You know, creativity is a fundamental aspect of getting new things out into the world, but it's only one part of the skill set that is required for innovation to really happen. And actually, a person can be both an igniter and an implementer, you know, and it's not just one or another. So we're measuring discrete skill sets that are a blend, and everybody is a mixture, not just, oh, you're this or you're that. It's not a binary answer. We're more complex than that as people. We've got lots of different skills, but we're not going to be great at everything. And that's really sort of the core of the message.
Let's take a look at some of this data. I think that's what I'm looking at here in this next slide. For those that are watching, I'm looking at sort of a bar graph with 6 eyes. And so we've got strength on the y-axis and then an importance scale as well. So walk us through this. What are we looking at? Oops.
Yeah. So this is my results on the 6 eyes of innovation. Oh, okay. So you can see across the horizontal axis, we've got the 6 eyes: the identify, ignite, investigate, invest, implement, and improve. And yes, that's on the strengths, it's 0 to 100. So these are normed scores. So they're deciles. So I consider my strengths predominantly to be in identify and ignite, and then in implement. So you can see on the purple score there, I also see myself as somebody that is pretty good at getting things done, making things happen, driving things out into the world. Not so high on investigate and improve. They are my 2 lowest scores. So the dark bar is the self-perception. You know, that's what, you know, the first question I ask, how good do you think you are?
Right.
And then the lighter colored bar is the importance score. So you can see for me, maybe because I am an entrepreneur and I'm always responding to market change and what's going on and what's moving and shaping, is that I still see that I have to be open-minded. I have to be curious. It's important for me to be continually looking out to see what's changing and then being responsive to those changes around me. So you can see that I put high importance still on identify and ignite. So in a sense, I have a match there to what I consider my skill level to be and what's important, which is good given what I do in some ways. But on the other one, you can see on investigate and improve, I have a big gap, you know, between those two. I see them as important. I don't see my skill set as strong as what other people see their skill sets as being strong in that normed data set.
Right.
So what that means is that if I'm not aware of it, I will either jump those phases because I'm too preoccupied with identifying, igniting, and implementing, and that I need to partner. I'm never going to develop those skills to be as good as someone else that is good. Obviously, I can try and get better at that when I need to, particularly if we're working a lot on our own. We have to try and get better at certain skills. But really, it's more, how can you partner out with other people and get them involved to help you, you know, along the journey.
Yes, oh, that's great. Yeah, and I've heard this. So let's look at this as well. We have this poll. So this is a graph. Walk us through this left one here.
Yeah, so what we can do once we have data, and this is what becomes really interesting when you start to work with teams that are trying to do new things together, is to aggregate each person's data set and create a team profile to say, okay, well, what do we consider collectively our strengths and what's important to us as a team? So this particular team, you can see implement is their top strength. It's also rated as quite important. Identify is their lowest strength.
It's their top one because they have rated this one the highest on what's most important to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got it.
Yeah, so you can see on the right-hand side the scores there. So you've got 46, 77.
Right.
So that is the highest importance score for that particular group, and it's also what they consider their strongest collective strength. So if you were working with them, then you'd be thinking, okay, well, how are you getting things done? You know, why? You know, if they say an implementation team, and there's somebody that they're a team of people that have got to operationalize and get things out into the world, then that would be great, for example. But say they are lacking a little bit in strategy or the big picture, the identify skill set, which is their lowest one. So you can see there it's 30 in terms of their collective strengths. That just means there's a few of them in the team, maybe that are seeing themselves to be high on that. But it's still rated as quite high in terms of importance. So then the question would be, okay, so what if it's important to you? What can you do to make sure you've got some space, particularly headspace, to start thinking about the bigger picture, what's changing around you, so that you can respond and be implementing, you know, the ideas and new things that are actually going to be of benefit both to you and to your customers. So it helps you to start to have a conversation as a collective team as to, you know, what's important and how you're doing things.
Very fun. Yeah, I'm seeing all kinds of things you could go after. You know, where's the biggest gap, right? Maybe identify. You know, maybe they could have the biggest gains, if you will, and get some momentum because they want to be way up here and they're way down here. Very cool. I love this. Love this concept. This chart on the right is pretty colorful. Let's cover this, if you would, please.
Yeah. So for each eye, as I said, I have like 6 skills that we measure underneath each eye. So this is just an example for Ignite, which is the red color. Okay. So each of these skills, we're drilling down now into what the collective response is of this particular team. So for example, at the top, you can say at motivating others to share their ideas. So that's one of the skills that we're measuring there. And I think it's got 52 and 76. So 52% of the team consider themselves to be good at that particular skill. And 70, is that 76?
Yes.
I think 76, yeah. It's saying it's important. So that gives them a gap there of, is it 24? I'm trying to see what my class is.
Yeah, got it. So it's sub attributes within each.
Yes, it's the attribute, and then you can start to say, okay. One of the things that I built into the questionnaire when I created it was 3 additional concepts which are really important for leaders of teams. One is innovation leadership. How good am I at getting other people to do things? Yeah, not just am I good at igniting and coming up with loads of ideas. Can I get you? Can I create the environment that stimulates your thinking? So innovation leadership, culture building, so enabling and creating the environment that will help innovation flourish across each of these 6 eyes, and also open innovation and collaboration. So across each stage of the journey, we want to be making sure we're partnering more and more these days. You know, it's about partnership. It's about collaboration. It's about, you know, how we reach out and get other things, whether it's skill or IP or technology or whatever it might be that we need to help us to drive our ideas forward.
Love this. Well, I want to just welcome our audience. If you have some live viewers, feel free to ask away. Ask Natalie questions. Feel free to ask me questions as well. We'll have we'll continue our chat here. But I just want to welcome you to plug away, participate here today. I want to talk about your book. We mentioned it briefly. When did you first write it? And is it still something that you find is a great place to start?
Yes. So I wrote Yes, You Can Innovate. Here it is here. Yes, You Can Innovate back in 2018 now. And I did it again because clients asked for it. They said, wouldn't it be good if we had a how-to book, which had lots of tools, lots of things we could try out, tips, very practical things to help people stimulate these different eyes and create the skill sets and the mindsets around each of the eyes. So it is a good place to start, because I think it helps you to understand that, you know, there are lots of different things that can help, because it's a skills area that we're looking at. It's not just psychology or personality. It is literally, how good do I think I am at these particular skills? Then I can get better at certain skills. So breaking that down, and then breaking it down even further to the individual attributes, and saying, for this attribute, try this. If you want to get better at this, try this. So it's very, very practical in that way. And what's been really interesting from initially launching it, and it got Business Book of the Month both in England and in Singapore. I was living in Asia back when I published, but I'm from the UK, and my publisher Pearson is a UK-based publishing house. I got Business Book of the Month, and that was fantastic because that gave it a great launch. But what I have found is I have packaged it in all of the programs that we sell. You know, so we do training programs, coaching programs, facilitations, strategy workshops, all of those types of things. So the book is a great sort of accompaniment really to the programs, and a great takeaway, because people can then sort of, you know, take away and actually read up and reinforce their own thinking.
That's fantastic. And I'll show off your website here a bit. So this is your homepage here, the 6-i-innovation.com. And you've got a lot here. Maybe walk us through just a part of it, maybe for those that are visiting for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. So all those great faces there on the front page are what we call certified 6 Eyes practitioners. You were asking earlier about challenges and things. And one of the big challenges is scaling, you know, intellectual property scaling, particularly something like this. And so I knew that I needed to codify again my knowledge and train other people who are already innovation consultants or coaches or facilitators, or in leadership development, and enable them to become practitioners. So then all those people are practitioners on the front, and I run practitioner programs, and that's enabled the model to scale globally. But on the website, I have an overview of what is the 6 Eyes. I go into the detail of all of that. There's lots of videos that you can see. There's the list of all the different types of services that we offer. So we do blended speeches. I'm a keynote speaker as well, so I do a lot of keynotes around this particular subject, both online and face to face. We have insights to action, which is when teams can come together, like the graphs that I showed you, and we can work with the team on helping them build stronger innovation culture, processes, ways of working. We have 6 Eyes in Action. That's actually a service which helps people to use the 6 Eyes model as a strategy workshop, so that they actually go away at the end of it with lots of ideas that they can go and then test. And it takes them through a robust process. And then the certification, which I just mentioned, and the profile. So they're just the list of services. And then there's other information. There's my media coverage and about me as a speaker, and my book, and events that we run as well. So we're always running, very similar to you. You know, I do something called Yes, You Can Innovate Conversations. And we're about to actually do one on innovation management, which is with a specialist in IP, actually, Andrew Stanton. So he's going to be facilitating that with me.
My goodness, quite busy. You're doing a lot. For some of our listeners, you know, maybe those watching live or those that are going to watch this after we get done or watching it, and they're like, gosh, I'm just a solo inventor. I've got this cool thing. What's an easy little tidbit? What's the first little thing that I can do to feel like maybe this is a good thing for me to get into? What sort of something they could get started with if they wanted to look into this? What's that first thing they should do? Well,
I think if you want to get involved with the 6 Eyes, obviously the book I think is a great place to start. But also we have the profile online, so people can go in and take the assessment themselves and find out what they consider their strengths to be. and do a bit of self-reflection and think, okay, right, so if I am an identifier igniter, what does that mean for me right now if I'm low on investigate or implement? So I think, it can give you that self-awareness in a data-driven way, if you like. So you can start to think about, how do I play to my strengths, and who am I going to need on the journey? Who am I going to need to partner with? What type of skill set do I need to make sure that I can draw in? So I would say they're a couple of sort of places to start.
Good. And you spent lots of time, many years developing this information, and I'm sure you've learned this, that intellectual property, as you've developed it, is valuable. And so I'm guessing that this assessment is not free. Is that true?
Well, with the book, we do have a cut down version called the book profile, but online it is available to people, and it costs, I think it's 60 euros. And so you can go online and do that, but I'm very happy to offer a special offer to your viewers today if they are curious about themselves and would like to go and find themselves what their strengths are.
Lovely. And thank you for getting to that segue. You did offer a code. Are you comfortable if I share that here?
Sure, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you again for that offer. We've got a discount code. It's BP10. Is that right?
Yes, BP10.
Okay. And that's for to go get your own assessment. Bold audience. Thank you so much for that.
And that's on the profile on the website. You can see where it says, you can go and measure your strengths under the services. It's there. Okay, perfect. Well, I want to have a final question for you as we kind of wind down our interview. It's kind of a big picture reflection. If you were to look back and give some advice to inventors trying to stay relevant, trying to stay true to their purpose, what's some advice you would say? Well, I think that's a really good place to start. We haven't talked a lot about this on this model, but purpose is the center of it. And purpose, so it is a purpose-based instrument in the sense of not only the purpose of what you're trying to achieve, but your purpose within that too as an individual. And I think lining those two up is really, really important. That what you're creating is coming out of your deeper sense of what you feel your life is about, what you're really wanting to do and how you want to contribute your skill set, your knowledge, your experience in the world. And I think it's always, I call it the purpose pause. Life is tough, innovating is tough, inventing is really tough. So get back on that purpose pause, imagine yourself standing there on the map of the 6 eyes and look out from it and say, where is my idea right now? And what does it need next? What skill set does it need? What mindset does it need? Who can help? And reach out and partner with people and really, think through your own needs and requirements across what you're trying to do, so you can accelerate your own, your own speed as well, to have impact and to create results and meaningful results for yourself and for your customers.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much, Natalie, for being on our show, for being a great guest, sharing with us the 6 eyes. And we had Jonathan Mitchell ignite the fire. So he's excited. Thank you for participating, Jonathan. And thanks again for sharing that discount code for us and our audience today. So we'll have to have you back on here at some point, and we could have a chat about what's next for those audience members if they want to take it to the next level, or we have them reach out to you directly. So thank you again for being a part of our show. Have a great day, everybody. Go big.
Thank you. Thanks very much, JD. Thank you.
Go big, go bold.
Go big, go bold at boldip.com.